a single player story driven game that is an FPS, except that instead of using guns or anything like that, you actually use magic. Essentially, you're playing as a main character named Jack using 3 different forces of magic. There is the blue force magic, there's the chaos red magic, and there's the green life magic. There are more than 25 different spells, which is essentially each one is a brand new attack. You can kind of mold them to your playstyle, do different combinations. Some of them combo really well with each other, and over 80 different talents to improve your style and just basically build into what you want to be using. Before we go any farther, thank you so much to EA for sponsoring this video. They asked if I wanted to get some gameplay of this for you guys, show it off, see what you guys thought. I said, absolutely, let's check it out, and that's what we are doing here. The first thing I want to mention about this game, and the first thing I noticed, that the graphics are like really nice. The particle effects are amazing. The character animations are super clean. Everything about this game looks beautiful, and that's because it's built entirely in Unreal Engine 5.1. The colors were super vibrant. Everything that I saw was like, it just looked really good. This is probably one of the best looking current gen games that I've seen in a long time, and you definitely feel that in the combat with the lighting effects. Everything just, I don't know how to put it into words. Everything just feels and looks really good when you're moving around in this game. When you first start out, the magic is super simple. You basically have 3 different kinds of magic, the red, blue, and green magic, and each one has 3 different abilities. Let's take, for instance, the blue magic. The first ability is just your normal shot. It is kind of like a sniper rifle. You can get a semi-automatic long-range precise headshots that'll do extra damage. This is kind of your long-range style attack, which you're just gonna like whittle down enemies from a distance. The second blue magic you start out with is a lash, which is basically a whip that pulls enemies to you and acts as a grapple. It's super nice for, you know, weeding out enemies and pulling them to you. Last but not least is your fury spell, which is kind of like an ultimate, which launches all of the enemies in front of you up in the air with rocky spikes from the ground. This one is going to be kind of like a, you know, use it when you need to. You're not going to be spamming this thing all the time because you can't, but it is super useful for breaking shields, getting to enemies, and kind of juggling them in the air. The red chaos magic that you start out with is called frag fire. It's basically just like a shotgun blast at close range. Super simple, but really good at doing damage up close. Instead of having your whip on this red magic, you're going to get a beam that disorients your enemies. Think of it just like a flashbang beam. It's really useful for just, you know, getting out of bad situations. And the big ult is blast wave. You're going to see that in this gameplay. You're actually able to conjure an AoE explosion around yourself, and this one is probably one of the most powerful ones that I saw in this session. Your green magic you start out with is Maelstrom. It is a rapid fire homing shards. You're basically just going to shoot out like a machine gun that home in on your enemies. Really useful just for like getting down some damage. Your next ability for green is going to be a bottle of green magic that slows down objects and enemies, makes it really useful to get that damage down. And your fury ultimate for this is going to be 3 ranged seeking magic projectiles that are going to home out your enemies and take them out. Finally, you do have one more spell, which is your ultimate, which combines all 3 different colors of magic. It is a devastating beam that just basically does insane damage. You can use it against bosses, enemies, anything you want, because this thing is going to obliterate anything in front of you. That is your Dominion spell, Immolate, to start off with. It is nuts. You're going to see it in this gameplay. Now, each one of those things that I mentioned was one of the spells, and reminder, there are 25 of them. So this is just kind of like a small sample of what we actually see in the full game. Really cool stuff, and being able to switch between your magics and doing different abilities, attacks, everything like that. It is really nice to combo these things together because everything just kind of works together well. And then on top of that, you're going to be able to go into your skill tree and just put different talents into it. And also, you're going to be able to equip different gear. This is going to be a lot of progression in this game where you're molding this to your playstyle. If you're really liking green magic, heck, just make yourself a green mage. If you're really liking red, you can spec more into red. Basically, whatever you're enjoying, you can kind of augment your playstyle around that to what you're liking most. But you will have to keep in mind that certain enemies will have, you know, a certain color shield where you have to use that kind of magic. They might be resistant to some other kind, weak to some other kind. It's all about balancing your build, but really just going into what you want to play the most. Now, as you've been seeing the gameplay, and as you're going to see more in this, we actually fought 3 different bosses during this play session. It was kind of insane how many bosses were sprinkled in super close together, and the kind of variety of them. Again, the highlight of these is just how good they look. I mean, each one is very unique, but the colors, the effects, the different arenas that you fought in, the graphics are really shown off in a very nice way in this game. That makes it a lot of fun to fight the different bosses. As far as story goes, there's basically 2 different warring factions, and the main character's name is Jack, and he essentially gets his powers later than everyone else because of a traumatic event. He is called an unforeseen because he gets his powers as a result of that traumatic event, which of course is his parents getting murdered by the bad guys. So, you know, he's gonna have some You'll kind of hear him in the background. He's not very happy with the enemies, and he's not very good at listening when it comes to showing restraint, and that's kind of like what his character seemed to be in the kind of early look at this game. But I mentioned it earlier, as you're going through and as you're playing, you're going to get a lot of different things to upgrade. There are sigils, which are like a wand. It's called the Catalyst, but it's like a wand that makes your magic more powerful. They'll unlock new variants that can enhance and change your magical spells. You can get different rings, which again enhance and change your spells, or just kind of buff you up overall to give you that growing power feeling. Everything has like levels and everything like that to make sure you're feeling progression through the game. There are totems, which affect your abilities of the magical equipment and spells. And finally, there are bracers, which affect your passive abilities and stats. These are again just going to help you feel like you're progressing and getting more and more powerful as you play. They basically told us there are going to be a dozen different biomes, some of them going to be like lush forest types, snowy peaks, lava caves, a bunch of different areas that you can discover and go exploring. Over a dozen, they said, and in each individual area there's going to be different enemies, side quests, puzzles, and boss fights. I saw a couple different side quests and puzzles in these playthroughs, and each one seemed like it was rewarding a nice little like bonus boost upgrade to some sort of stat or gear or something new that was going to help you along with your journey. So getting into my thoughts and overall feel, I thought this gameplay kind of felt a little bit kind of doomy in some way, where you were kind of like in each individual zone. It was kind of like each encounter was its own thing. You would have to clear out enemies, move through. The movement kind of felt a little doomy as well, where you were kind of traversing around the area. You were using a double jump, a dash, just to get to better areas. And one thing I will say is that this game is not going to be just like a normal walk in the park, like you're going to just breeze through everything willy-nilly. You actually have to like be thinking, trying hard to survive. There's several times during this gameplay where the character died. Like you just die and you have to restart from a checkpoint, because the game is just, it's not a walk in the park easy. It actually makes you think, but that kind of makes it more, for me, more rewarding whenever you go through. I like games to have a little bit of a challenge to it. It wasn't like overwhelming where I was dying to anything like BS, but everything that, if you play dumb, you're gonna die dumb. That's essentially how this game is gonna work. One thing I will mention that you can kind of tell from the gameplay, but we're not really allowed to show any of the cutscenes, but the cutscenes did look really, really good. I really do enjoy the graphics that they did for this game. Everything ran super smoothly. I wasn't experiencing any sort of frame rate drops or anything like that. Everything ran really, really well for this game, and I think it was, I think it'll show in the gameplay. It's just a beautiful game. We were able to glean from the play session that Sandrak is the main villain and the leader of the theocracy of Rasharn. That is going to be the main bad guy in this story. I wish you guys could see some of the cutscenes that we saw, because it is it is very menacing during some parts, for sure. All of the soldiers are all very varied. Some of them are going to jump up into the air, float around, and then try to shoot at you from up there. Some of them are going to try to get right up in your face. Some of them are going to stay at very long distance, throwing things at you. You have to be very observant of where these projectiles, where these enemies are coming from, and the best ways to beat them. Almost everything is going to be important in terms of the type of magic you're using. You can break red shields with red magic, for instance, and maybe something will be then weak to blue magic. You have to really be paying attention to these different enemies and learning how to beat them, because as you progress, the game's obviously just going to get harder and harder. You're going to get more and more powerful, so it's going to be really interesting to see all the different combos of enemies that you'll experience throughout your playthrough. Overall, I really enjoyed the time with this game. I'm really excited to see more of it as we're coming up to a release, which is actually very, very soon. The game comes out on July 20th, 2023, which, what's the date? That's soon. Wow, that's very, very soon. Very soon. If you guys are interested in pre-ordering after seeing this gameplay, if you do like what you see, you can get it on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X or S, or if you're a PC gamer, you can get it on the EA app, Steam, or the Epic Games Store, whichever one, or all three of them if you really want to go crazy. You can pre-order the game from the link down below in the description, and also we'll have more information about the game down there. And I want to know your thoughts on the game, what you saw here today. I think this game is very, very promising. I'm excited to see more when this game does release and try it out, play it, and I had a great time with this. Once again, check that link in the description if you would like to pre-order the game. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.